Question: can you describe what you mean with a spiritual experience, and why is it important for us to have them? Yeah, of course there are many different kinds of spiritual experiences. They take many forms. But common to all of them, if you step away from the specifics, a spiritual experience is when you experience that there's something beyond your normal state of consciousness, your normal state of mind. That would be a very broad definition of a spiritual experience. And it's probably too broad because you can always send up criteria and say, is this spiritual, is that spiritual? But as a general definition, something beyond your normal state of mind. And the importance of this, the reason why it's important, is that spiritual growth is about changing your state of mind, raising your state of mind, raising your level of consciousness. And if you don't realize, if you don't really accept that there's something beyond your normal state of consciousness, then it's more difficult to achieve it, and it becomes more of a theoretical concept. But it's not really, spiritual growth is not a matter of acquiring intellectual understanding. It's a matter of really shifting your consciousness. And that is experiential, not intellectual. You have to really experience it, and that's why it's important to have that experience. I mean, I think back, when I was a teenager, I was often sitting there in high school and tuning out what the teacher was saying, and I had this sense that if I could just shift my mind a little bit, I'd experience something different, a whole different reality. In essence, I couldn't have formulated, but in essence, I sensed that it has to be a state of mind that's beyond my normal state of mind. And then when I was 18, I started college, and I met some people who went to Transcendental Meditation, and I took this 1 month meditation course. And after I came home, I was lying on my bed, and I was just sort of, my thoughts just stopped. And without thinking about it, all of a sudden, I felt like I was out of my body, and I was in this tunnel, and it felt like I was in free fall, but direction was up. And I literally started seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, and I plunged into this golden light. I have no idea what happened in the light, but all of a sudden I was back in my bed. But this was, in high school, I had this theoretical sense that there must be something beyond my normal state of mind. But this out-of-body experience, I experienced that I was outside of my physical body. Normally, we experience life inside. We are inside the body. We are seeing everything through the body, and that's why we can identify ourselves with the body. But I had experienced, and that experience of falling up through that tunnel was more real than anything I experienced inside. There was not a theory. I was not intellectualizing this. And from that moment on, I knew I am not the body, and it started this whole process of disidentifying myself from the body. And later I had other spiritual experiences that showed me that in my normal state of mind, my emotions were very turbulent, and I was always sort of sensitive to other people's feelings and other people's emotions. But then I had these experiences of total calmness, total peace of mind. And so I realized I am more than my emotions, because my emotions are just like waves on the ocean, but I had actually experienced the ocean itself, the calmness of the ocean. And I later had experiences of being conscious without having any thoughts. So based on this direct experience, I realized I'm more than my thoughts. And even there came a point where I realized I'm more than my sense of identity. And so what I'm saying is that we have our normal state of mind, and I've explained in several of my videos that we have, in our subconscious minds, we have all of these subconscious selves that are based on a certain illusion, and they form a perception filter, and we are seeing life through that perception filter. And as long as we're inside of it, we don't have a frame of reference. I mean, think about this. A fish swimming in the ocean is obviously wet. But would a fish ever consider itself as being wet? Would it even be able to ask the question, am I wet or dry? No, because the fish has never been out of the water. It has never experienced there's an alternative to the water. It has no frame of reference that there's anything but water. So it can't ask the question, am I wet or dry? And it's the same with us. If we are trapped inside the perception filter of our outer minds, we can't ask the question, is there anything outside? And if we can't ask the question, is there a higher state of consciousness than what we have right now? How can we achieve it? Well, we can theorize about it because we can read a spiritual teaching. But until you have an actual experience that there's something outside your own state of consciousness, you don't have that frame of reference. And you can keep building your theory, but it's not going to shift your mind. And I have met people on the spiritual path who they seem like they are the most eager students. They've been on the spiritual path for 30, 40 years. They have studied all of these teachings. You just push a button and they come up with all of these theoretical, intellectual understandings of what the path is about. And they can quote this teacher and that teacher and this and that. But they're still all in the mind. They're still trying to create this mental image of what a spiritual experience is or what a higher state of consciousness is. But they haven't shifted. And as I've explained in several of my videos, there are 144 levels of consciousness that are possible on Earth. And the spiritual path really starts at the 48th level, and we gradually rise to these higher and higher levels where we disidentify from the physical body, from our emotions, from our thoughts, and from our sense of identity. We disidentify from the outer personality, realize we are not that, we are actually our higher selves. And we become more and more identified with our higher selves. And that's the process of spiritual growth. And it's a shifting experience, not something you understand theoretically. You can't see it from a distance, You can only shift. And it's these spiritual experiences, intuitive experiences that help us shift instead of just becoming more and more intellectual about it. And so to me, a spiritual experience is really that shows us there's an alternative to our current state of consciousness. But we also have to be willing to use it to question our worldview, our intellectual understanding, until we actually shift. And it's small shift. I'm not talking about this, instant enlightenment that some people talk about. I'm talking about small shifts in how we see the world, how we see ourselves, where we gradually raise our consciousness. And it's not something you can force. It's not something you can bring about intellectually. It's just a shift. It's like all of a sudden, oh yeah, it's my old example, you're wearing colored glasses, and suddenly you take off the glasses and now you see the world without the glasses. And there are many, many small shifts like that make up spiritual growth. And I'm not saying it can't be a few more dramatic shifts, but be careful of what people who say, oh, I had an instant awakening and now I'm completely awakened. No. You had gone through a lot of smaller shifts that you didn't realize you were going through. Then suddenly a bigger shift happened. But if you think this is the final shift and you're finally awakened, you're fooling yourself, because now you stop yourself at that level. And you need to keep going and seek experiences beyond where you're at now. And that's continued growth. And that will be an ongoing process as long as we are on Earth. It doesn't stop it doesn't really stop beyond Earth, but it certainly doesn't stop on this planet, which is a very low, dense planet, as I've explained in several videos. So I hope this at least gets you started. I know there are many different experiences. I know you can come up and say, are certain experiences really spiritual? is a drug-induced experience, really a spiritual experience, but it can be used as that if it shows you there's an alternative to your normal state of consciousness, and if you realize you can achieve it without any chemical help, you can achieve it by working with your mind. So that's a whole other discussion that I won't go into here, but I hope this at least helps you see why spiritual experiences are important compared to intellectual understanding of spiritual concepts.